You have been spending money on pesticides every single season, spraying, mixing, repeating, and every time the same aphids come back. The same beetles return. The same slugs finish off whatever is left standing. What nobody told you is that 7 plants exist that will run a complete pest control operation in your garden for free every single year without a single spray. And at least 2 of them most people pull straight out of the ground because they think it is a weed. That stops today. Most gardening content will tell you what to plant. This information tells you exactly why it works down to the compound, biology, and placement, so you never waste another dollar on something that does not work. If that is the kind of information you have been looking for, subscribe right now, because what is coming next is the kind of things most gardeners spend years trying to figure out on their own. Plant number 1, lavender. You have seen it everywhere. Gardens, candles, soaps, bath products, every gardener recognizes it. What almost nobody understands is the exact biological reason pests genuinely cannot tolerate it, and why the way most people plant it makes it nearly useless as real protection. Lavender carries 2 compounds locked inside the tiny glandular hairs covering every inch of the plant: linalool and linalool acetate. To us, that fragrance is calming and familiar. To moths, fleas, flies, mosquitoes, and silverfish, those compounds completely overwhelm their olfactory system. Their navigation shuts down. They turn around before they ever reach whatever you planted nearby. That is not poetic language. That is the actual biological mechanism happening every single day in your garden. Here is the information that changes everything, and most gardening content never gets here. 1 lavender plant is decoration. 3 lavender plants spaced 18 inches apart is a fortress. The combined oil output of 3 plants does not simply triple the protection. It creates a continuous scent zone, a wall, rather than a single isolated point source. That wall is what actually redirects flying pests away from your beds. 1 plant scattered in a garden border cannot do that. 3 plants deliberately positioned absolutely can. For USDA zones, lavender thrives in zones 5 through 9. Zone 4, gardeners, planted against a south-facing wall, and lay thick mulch across the base before winter hits. Zones 10 and 11, treat it as a cool season perennial. Get it in the ground in fall and give it afternoon shade through the hottest months of summer. Full sun, minimum 6 hours daily. Well-draining soil above everything else. Lavender sitting in wet ground will rot at the crown before you ever realize what is happening. Heavy clay soil needs coarse gravel worked thoroughly through it or put it in a raised bed entirely. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart, depending on the variety. Best placement is along bed borders, beside roses, near vegetable patches, and at doorways and patios where mosquitoes gather around dusk. One tip that almost everyone misses: do not cut lavender all the way back in autumn. Leave 1/3 of the green growth standing. That remaining growth protects the crown through winter and brings the plant back strong every spring. Cut it to the ground, and you may not see it return. The bonus on lavender goes further than most people realize. The flowers are fully edible. The dried stems are useful indoors all year. The oil has documented medicinal history going back centuries. This is one of the highest value plants per square foot you can put anywhere in a garden. Pest control, pollinator magnet, culinary herb, and home remedy all growing from the same root system. Drop a comment right now and tell me which pest has been doing the most damage in your garden this season. I read every single one. Tell me exactly what you are dealing with. Plant number 2. Catmint. Yes, it is related to catnip. Yes, your cat will lose its mind over it. Set that aside completely, because what catmint does to the insect population surrounding your garden is something that deserves your full attention right now. Researchers at Iowa State University found that nepetalactone, the active compound inside catmint, is roughly 10 times more effective at repelling mosquitoes than DEET, the synthetic chemical inside most commercial bug sprays that people spend real money on every single season. 10 times more effective. And it is sitting in a perennial that comes back every year at zero cost. Mosquitoes are only the beginning. Catmint repels aphids, Japanese beetles, flea beetles, squash bugs, and weevils. The reason it works across so many different species is that nepetalactone mimics a warning pheromone that insects use to signal danger to each other. The chemical equivalent of this area is not safe. Leave immediately. When insects detect it in the surrounding air, their instinct drives them to flee, not just the plant itself, but the entire surrounding zone. They are not avoiding the catnip, they are abandoning the area completely. For USDA zones, catnip grows in zones 3 through 8, making it one of the hardiest options on this entire list. Minnesota, Maine, the Northern Plains, catnip handles brutal winters without any protection whatsoever. Full sun to light shade in average to slightly dry soil. Extremely drought-tolerant once established. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. It grows into a beautiful low mounding shape around 18 inches tall and wide, covered in soft lavender blue flowers from late spring through early fall. Here is the golden tip on catnip. Write this down. Cut it back by half after its first bloom in early summer. It rebounds within 2 to 3 weeks with a fresh flush of flowers and, far more importantly, fresh young aromatic foliage. That second growth carries the highest concentration of nepetalactone of the entire growing season. That is peak pest repelling power, and most gardeners never trigger it because they never cut the plant back after the first bloom. Plant catnip along the edges of vegetable beds, near squash and pumpkin, where Japanese beetles are a recurring problem, and along pathways where foot traffic brushes the leaves and releases that compound directly into the air around you without any effort on your part. One practical warning. If you have outdoor cats, protect young transplants with wire closures until the plants are fully established. A cat rolling on a fresh transplant will set you back weeks before it recovers. This plant is self-sustaining, cold-hardy, visually striking, and runs active pest deterrents around the clock from the moment it is in the ground. There is almost no reason not to have it bordering every growing bed you own. Plant number 3, yarrow. This plant has been used for over 3,000 years, and modern science has finally caught up to explain in precise detail exactly why it works so well in a garden setting. What makes yarrow different from every other plant on this list is that it does not just repel pests. It recruits an army to fight them for you, and it runs both operations at the exact same time. Yarrow's fine, feathery foliage releases 2 compounds, camphor and borneol. Both are volatile, meaning they push directly into the surrounding air and create an airborne chemical barrier that aphids find genuinely intolerable. That alone would make it worth planting, but yarrow goes further than that. Its flat-topped flower clusters, called corymbs, are perfectly structured landing platforms for parasitic wasps, hoverflies, and lacewings. These are the insects that eat aphids, caterpillars, and whitefly larvae for breakfast. A single lacewing larva can consume up to 200 aphids in 1 week. Yarrow pulls them into your garden and gives them a reason to stay there permanently. So, while its foliage is chemically pushing pests out, its flowers are biologically pulling predators in. Nothing else on this list does both simultaneously at that level. For USDA zones, yarrow grows in zones 3 through 9. It handles drought, poor soil, dramatic temperature swings, and the kind of neglect that would kill most garden plants without a second thought. For anyone newer to perennial gardening, this is the most forgiving plant on this entire list. Here's the counterintuitive golden fact about yarrow, and most gardening content gets this completely backwards. Yarrow performs better in poor to average soil. Rich, heavily fertilized ground makes it floppy, tall, and far less aromatic. Less aromatic means less camphor and borneol pushing into the surrounding air. Less airborne compound means less pest-repelling power. Feed it too well, and you are actively working against what the plant is trying to do. Let it struggle slightly. It genuinely does better for it. Full sun, well-drained soil, space plants 1 to 2 ft apart. Yarrow spreads underground by rhizomes, so plant it where you do not mind it expanding, or divide it every 2 to 3 years to keep it contained within the space you intended. Plant yarrow at the corners of your vegetable beds and in the pathways running between growing sections. That specific positioning pulls beneficial insects directly into the center of your garden, rather than leaving them at the edges. White and yellow varieties attract the widest range of beneficial insects. Red and pink varieties are beautiful and still excellent as repellents. Slightly less effective for beneficial insect recruitment, but not by enough to avoid them. The bonus on yarrow is worth mentioning. It dries perfectly for wreaths and arrangements. It has a genuine history as an anti-inflammatory medicinal herb, and as a cut flower, it is exceptional. Plant 3, not 1. Plant number 4, lemon balm. Crush a single leaf between your fingers, and it smells exactly like lemon candy. That scent comes from a compound called citronellol, the same substance used in citronella candles that people burn on back porches every summer, trying to keep mosquitoes away. The critical difference is that a candle burns out. This plant does not. Lemon balm releases citronellol continuously through its leaves, especially when the sun warms them during the day, or when they get brushed against while you are moving through the garden. It is always working. Mosquitoes, gnats, aphids, and squash bugs all respond to it the same way. They avoid the surrounding area entirely. But the pest-repelling story of lemon balm goes further than what most people ever hear about. Lemon balm releases a specific compound that directly interferes with the trail pheromones ants use to communicate with each other. Those pheromone trails are the entire operating system of an ant colony. They direct the colony to food sources, coordinate movement, and build the network that allows thousands of individual insects to function as one unit. Disrupt those trails, and you disrupt the entire operation at its foundation. Plant lemon balm near ant entry points, and you are not just repelling them, you are breaking their communication system at the source. For USDA zones, lemon balm grows in zones 4 through 9, particularly vigorous in zones 6 through 9. It tolerates shade better than almost any other pest-repelling plant on this list, which makes it ideal for those partially shaded garden corners where other options simply will not survive. Partial to full sun, moist, well-drained soil. Space plants, 18 to 24 inches apart. Here is the golden management tip for lemon balm. Deadhead it consistently before the flowers turn to seed. Cut those flower heads off on a regular basis. This does two things simultaneously. It stops the plant from self-seeding and spreading beyond where you intend it. And it redirects all of the plant's energy back into leaf production. More leaves means more aromatic foliage, releasing citronellol into the surrounding air continuously. The pest-repelling power of this plant lives in its leaves. Protect that production. Best placement is beside doorways to block mosquitoes from gathering at the entrance near squash plants, in containers on patios and decks, and around any outdoor seating where you spend time in the evening. When you brush against it while gardening, the oil transfers directly to your hands and forearms. A natural insect repellent you did not have to think about, mix, or purchase. The bonus on lemon balm is substantial. It is one of the most widely studied medicinal herbs in clinical research, with documented effects on anxiety, sleep quality, and cognitive sharpness. The fresh leaves brew into a gentle, pleasant tea anytime you want it. The same plant standing guard over your vegetable beds is a free wellness herb growing 3 ft away from your back door. If you have been watching this and thinking about which of these you are putting in first, that answer is worth sharing. Subscribe so you do not lose track of this. Every single week, a video this detailed and this specific goes up. Miss a week, and you are leaving real, usable knowledge on the table. Plant number 5, chives. Most people think of chives as something they chop onto a baked potato or stir into scrambled eggs. In a garden bed, chives are one of the most strategically effective pest control tools available, and they work in a way that is completely unique among everything else covered today. Chives belong to the allium family, same family as garlic, onions, and leeks. Every member of that family shares one defining characteristic. They produce sulfur compounds, specifically allicin and diallyl disulfide. These compounds release from the leaves above the soil surface and from the root system growing below it. That underground release is what makes chives genuinely different from every other plant on this list. Below the surface, those sulfur compounds deter carrot root flies, onion flies, and critically, nematodes. Nematodes are microscopic soil-dwelling pests that attack plant roots silently from beneath, causing damage that looks exactly like a nutrient deficiency when you observe it from above. Most gardeners spend real money on fertilizer trying to correct a pest problem they cannot see and have never correctly identified. Chives quietly suppress that threat at the root level, without you ever knowing the danger was even present. Above ground, those same sulfur compounds release into the surrounding air and repel aphids, Japanese beetles, and mites. Japanese beetles in particular are acutely sensitive to allium chemistry. Plant chives near your roses and you will see a measurable, visible reduction in beetle damage within a single growing season. It is not subtle, it is noticeable. For USDA zones, chives grow in zones 3 through 9, among the first plants to push up through late snow each spring, and among the last to die back when autumn arrives. One of the most genuinely reliable perennials across every American climate zone. Full sun to light shade, well-drained average soil. Space plants 6 to 12 in apart. They grow in neat upright clumps, around 12 in tall. Let the purple globe flowers bloom fully. They are pest-repelling and completely edible. Stunning on a fresh salad. Run chives as a continuous border around carrot beds, rose beds, and anywhere you grow root vegetables. Tuck them in rows between vegetable columns. Plant them in containers near young fruit trees to suppress the aphid populations that cluster on new spring growth every year without fail. When harvesting, cut down to 2 and above the soil line. They regrow within 2 weeks, often coming back thicker and more productive than before the cut. Free culinary herbs and free underground pest control from the same plant year after year for the rest of your gardening life. That is the kind of return on investment that no spray bottle can come close to matching. Now, which of these 5 plants surprised you the most? Which one are you looking at differently right now than you were 10 minutes ago? Put that in the comments because the next 2 plants coming up finish this system completely. And one of them I call the nuclear option. Most gardeners have never once been told to plant it, and when you hear why, you are going to understand exactly what you have been missing. Plant number 6, rosemary. If you grow vegetables, especially brassicas, beans, or root crops, and rosemary is not somewhere in that garden, you have left a serious defense gap wide open. And the frustrating part is that most gardeners never know it is missing until the damage is already done. Rosemary's essential oil is dominated by 3 compounds working together: camphor, cineole, and alpha-pinene. Together, that combination is chemically intolerable to a wide range of destructive insects. Rosemary actively repels cabbage moths, bean beetles, carrot flies, Mexican bean beetles, and spider mites. The camphor component, in particular, overwhelms the sensory receptors of these insects so completely that they avoid the entire surrounding area, not just the plant itself. Here is the golden fact that almost no gardening content ever mentions, and this one single piece of information is worth more than everything most people have ever read about rosemary. Rosemary is most effective when planted upwind of the crops it is protecting. Pest insects do not wander randomly into your garden. They navigate on air currents. If your prevailing wind comes from the west, plant rosemary on the western border of your vegetable beds. The wind carries its chemistry directly into the flight path of incoming insects before they ever reach your plants. You are intercepting them at the perimeter, not chasing them after they have already landed, fed, and laid eggs on everything you worked to grow. That one shift in placement, from wherever feels convenient to deliberately upwind, changes what rosemary can do in your garden entirely. For USDA zones, rosemary is reliably perennial in zones 7 through 11. Zones 5 and 6 mulch heavily around the base and move any container-grown plants into an unheated garage or shed if temperatures are forecast to drop below 10 degrees Celsius. Zone 4 and below, grow it in containers and bring it indoors from November through March into a bright, cool spot with good air circulation. Full sun, 6 to 8 hours minimum every day. Excellent drainage above everything else. Wet roots in cold weather is the primary reason rosemary dies, and it happens faster than most people expect. In wetter climates, plant it on a slope or in a raised bed. In dry climates, once it is established, it is essentially maintenance-free. Space upright varieties 2 to 3 ft apart. Creeping rosemary varieties, the ones that stay low and spread horizontally, work beautifully as ground cover along bed edges. Equally potent as pest repellents, with the added benefit of covering bare soil between plantings that would otherwise invite weeds. Prune after flowering in spring to keep the plant dense and full. Never cut into old brown wood. Rosemary does not regenerate from bare stems the way many other perennials do. Always cut back into green growth only. That is the only growth that will push back. The bonus on rosemary goes well beyond the kitchen. 2 of its primary compounds, rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid, are currently being studied in clinical research for neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory effects. This plant is producing genuine biological value in multiple directions at the same time. Pest deterrent, culinary staple, medicinal research subject, and permanent garden fixture all in one. More value per square foot than almost anything else you can put in the ground. If you have been watching this entire video and still have not subscribed, think about this honestly. You just learned the exact biological compounds driving pest behavior, the precise placement strategies that make each plant work at maximum effectiveness, and the USDA zone specifics that tell you exactly what survives where you live. That level of detail does not show up by accident. It takes real research, real time, and a genuine commitment to giving you something worth watching. That commitment shows up every single week. Subscribe now. You have already seen what that looks like. Plant number 7, tansy. This is the one I call the nuclear option. It does not appear on most mainstream gardening lists. It rarely gets recommended in popular gardening content. That is honestly one of the most significant missed opportunities in American home gardening, because tansy is arguably the most effective broad-spectrum pest repellent growing in any garden on this continent. And the overwhelming majority of gardeners have never once been told to plant it. Tansy contains 3 compounds operating simultaneously: thujone, camphor, and borneol. That specific combination repels ants, cucumber beetles, squash bugs, Japanese beetles, Colorado potato beetles, houseflies, and mosquitoes. In colonial America, tansy was rubbed directly onto meat during summer months to keep flies off it. It was packed around doorways and window frames to stop ants from entering homes. This plant has been solving pest problems for American households for centuries, long before the chemical pesticide industry existed, long before spray bottles and synthetic compounds became the default answer to every garden problem. The track record on tansy is not theoretical. It is centuries long. Here is the critical golden information about tansy that you absolutely must know before you put it in the ground, because skipping this turns an extraordinary asset into a genuine problem. Tansy spreads. It is a vigorous, aggressive grower. It self-seeds readily, and in favorable conditions will push well beyond where you originally planted it. Left completely unmanaged, it will take ground you did not intend to give it. The solution is straightforward and non-negotiable. Sink a 5-gallon pot into the ground with just the rim sitting level at the soil surface and plant your tansy inside it. That physically contains the root spread underground. Then deadhead it consistently before any seeds form to stop aerial spread entirely. Do those 2 things without exception, and you have one of the most powerful pest-repelling plants available to any American gardener, completely under control, working hard every single season, coming back stronger every single year. For USDA zones, tansy grows in zones 3 through 9, genuinely cold-hardy, across the full range. Some of the most potent pest-repelling chemistry available in any perennial garden plant, and it handles brutal northern winters without any protection whatsoever. Full sun to partial shade. Average to poor soil. Like yarrow, tansy performs better when it is not overfed. Rich soil pushes it toward excessive height and reduced aromatic potency. It grows 2 to 4 ft tall, so position it at the back of beds or in corner placements where it will not shade smaller plants growing in front of it. Space plants, 18 to 24 in a part. Best placement is along the borders of vegetable beds near potato plants, where Colorado potato beetles are a known and recurring seasonal threat beside cucumber and squash beds, and along fence lines, where ants and crawling insects move in from surrounding soil and neighboring properties. One important note that cannot be skipped: do not allow livestock or pets to consume tansy in any significant quantity. The thujone compound is toxic when eaten in volume. Tansy is a garden barrier plant, not an edible herb. Keep it in the ground where it belongs, manage it correctly, and it is completely safe and extraordinarily effective season after season. Now, here is the part that most gardening content never reaches, and it may be the single most valuable thing in everything covered today. Every plant discussed works well on its own, but 3 of them planted together as a deliberate trio create something that no individual plant can accomplish alone. A layered defense system with no gaps, hitting pest insects through 3 completely different mechanisms at the same time. The combination is yarrow, catmint, and tansy. Catmint operates at ground and mid-level, releasing nepetalactone continuously into the surrounding air. It creates a chemical confusion zone that disorients and repels flying insects, aphids, beetles, mosquitoes, before they can land on anything near your beds. That is your first perimeter line. Yarrow sits at mid-height, running 2 operations simultaneously. Its camphor and borneol add a second layer of airborne repellent. Its flat, open flower heads recruit parasitic wasps and lacewings, the biological hunters that pursue whatever pest insects manage to push through the catmint layer. Yarrow is your mid-level chemical barrier, and your biological strike force in the same plant. Tansy stands at the back, 2 to 4 ft high, broadcasting thujone across a wide radius at ground level. It hits the crawling pest population, ants, cucumber beetles, squash bugs, Colorado potato beetles, the insects moving through the soil rather than through the air. The threats that airborne repellents never reach. 3 layers, 3 completely different mechanisms. No gap for pests to find their way through. Plant this trio at all 4 corners of your vegetable beds, 1 of each at every corner, and you have a 360-degree multi-level defense perimeter that runs itself all season, every season, year after year, without a single spray. To extend the system further, run chives as a continuous border between those corners. That adds underground nematode suppression and an above-ground sulfur barrier as a 4th layer. Then, plant rosemary on the upwind side of the entire bed. That gives you 5 biological defense layers working simultaneously, more comprehensive than what most commercial pest management programs deliver to properties far larger than a home garden. Write that combination down. Yarrow, catnip, and tansy at the corners. Chives along the borders. Rosemary positioned upwind. You do not fight pests, you build a garden that fights them for you. Every plant covered today is a perennial. Put it in once, and it comes back every year. Bigger, more established, more chemically potent, and more effective than the season before. The longer it is in the ground, the harder your garden works automatically. No spray schedule, no repeat purchases, no seasonal reset, just a permanent self-running defense system that compounds in value every single year it stays in the ground. If you are going to do one thing this weekend, one plant, one action, go with Yarrow if you are in zones 3 through 9. Easiest to find, least expensive to buy, practically impossible to kill, and it begins recruiting beneficial insects the moment it flowers. Zone 7 and above, start with rosemary. Get it upwind of your vegetable beds and let it begin working immediately. One plant this weekend. That is how a self-defending garden starts. If this gave you something real, something you are actually going to use, share it with one person you know who is out here fighting this same battle every season. One person. That is all it takes. Subscribe if you have not yet. Every week, this channel brings you information this specific, this researched, and this actionable. You have seen exactly what that looks like. The button is right there. And before you go, tell me something in the comments. You just heard 7 plants that can permanently change how your garden defends itself. But here is what I want to know. After everything covered today, do you think most American gardeners are losing the pest battle simply because nobody ever told them the truth about what actually works? Or do you think people just keep reaching for the spray bottle because it feels faster and easier, even when it never actually solves anything? Put your answer below, because that conversation is one worth having. If this story changed the way you look at the natural defenses in your garden, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the biological secrets that have been hidden in plain sight. Plant the future. The next treasure trove of knowledge will open soon.